We are not men. We are echoes in golden shells. We are perfection, sculpted to guard a corpse god who will never speak again. And in the silence of our duty, we are already dead. The palace never sleeps. Its marble arteries breathe with the footfalls of petitioners, the shuffle of scribes, the hiss of servitors dragging rusted chains across endless corridors. Yet for me, there is only silence. Silence so vast it presses into my chest until I wonder if I have lungs at all, or if they were taken from me long ago, traded for this armor of eternity. I stand as I have always stood, immovable beneath vaulted ceilings older than empires. My spear gleams beneath the glow of lumen strips, each surface polished until no shadow dares to linger. The weapon is flawless, as it must be. The man who bears it, less so. I feel the slow ache in my spine, the quiet whisper of memory pressing against walls I was taught to build inside myself. Custodians do not tire, I remind myself. Custodians do not falter, yet I feel it still. Each dawn, before the first petitioners stumble up the blood-worn steps of the sanctum, I kneel. No one sees. No one must see. With gauntlet hands I polish the haft of my guardian spear, murmuring a single line of an ancient poem from Terra's forgotten age. The words mean nothing now, but the rhythm clings to me like dust clings to stone. I do not know why I keep the habit. Perhaps because it is the only thing left that is mine. Beneath the plating of my chest, hidden between ceramite layers, I keep something far more dangerous. A fragment of cloth threadbare, gray, no larger than a coin. The world would call it worthless. But I remember its scent once, faintly sweet, warmed by kitchen fires and a mother's arms. A memory I should not possess, for we are not meant to remember who we were before. But I have kept it, perhaps as rebellion, perhaps as proof that I still exist. The grandeur of the palace is a lie. Pilgrims see towering columns, banners stretched like sails, golden titans standing sentinel. They believe this is majesty, proof that the emperor still lives, that his guardians are eternal. But I know better. I feel the dust beneath the marble tiles. I see cracks webbing across statues left unrepaired for centuries. I hear the hum of failing lumen coils, a stuttering rhythm like a heart too weak to keep beating. Even in gold, decay reigns. When the pilgrims gather outside the gates, pressing like waves of desperate flesh, I hear their prayers carried faintly on the wind. They scream for blessings, for miracles, for healing that will never come. Sometimes, their voices echo in the corridors where I stand, and for a moment, I almost believe the Emperor will rise and answer them, but he does not. He will not. We keep the illusion alive, not him. We are the lie made flesh. I remember the first time I killed a pilgrim. The memory is sharp, though I should not recall it. A boy had slipped past the lines, no older than 12, clutching a crude carving of the Emperor in his hands. His eyes met mine. He smiled. For a heartbeat, I thought him harmless. Then I saw the hidden blade bound to his wrist. Reflexes faster than thought drove my spear through his chest. He crumpled without sound, the carving falling from his hand. I can still hear the clatter of wood against marble. I told myself it was necessary. Yet at night, when the palace quiets, I hear that clatter again and again. It is in such moments I understand the truth. Perfection is not freedom, it is prison. Every step is measured, every word weighed, every motion dictated by centuries of conditioning. I am praised as golden, incorruptible, divine, but I am shackled more tightly than any slave. The chains are not iron, they are memory, silence, expectation. The others do not speak of it. Perhaps they do not feel it. Or perhaps they bury it deeper than I ever could. When I look into the mirrored surface of my armor, I see not a warrior, but a coffin I walk within, day after day, century after century, until the end of all things. There are nights when I wonder if the walls of the palace fell, if the throne itself were torn asunderwood. I remain here still, spear in hand, guarding ashes. Would I even know the difference? This is the silence of gold, not the silence of peace, but of suffocation, not the silence of prayer, but of forgetting. We are the Emperor's custodians. We are his will made flesh. We are eternal, but gold cracks, and even gods bleed. The walls of terror rise like tombstones, and every street is a grave dot. From the spires of the Imperial Palace, I can see the endless stretch of the hives, their jagged silhouettes piercing the clouds of smoke and ash. The air is never clean. It tastes of iron and decay, thick with the soot of manufactorums that have burned for 10,000 years without pause. Beneath that haze, billions writhe and scrape in filth, each breath a struggle, each prayer a plea for a salvation that will never come. They look toward the palace as if it were heaven itself. Yet heaven here is built from stone and bone, gold layered upon rot. Pilgrims travel across continents, through wastes and oceans of corpses, only to collapse upon the steps of these walls. They believe they have reached the throne of God. They believe we, his custodians, are angels. If they knew the truth, they would choke on their prayers. I have watched them arrive in endless waves, old men hobbling on broken sticks, mothers carrying children already too malnourished to cry, soldiers with rusted medals hanging from their necks. They kneel upon the marble, weeping, desperate to be seen. Some beg for a glimpse of the Emperor. Some beg merely for a drop of clean water. They reach out trembling hands, and my brothers and I stand immovable, faceless walls of gold. It is not mercy we are tasked to grant. It is silence. Once, a child no taller than my knee pushed through the throng. His hands were dirty, his ribs sharp beneath parchment skin, but his eyes, they were brighter than the lumen globes that hung above us. In his hand he held a flower, or what had once been a flower wilted brown, barely clinging to life. He reached toward me, arm trembling, as though offering it would mean something. I took one step forward, only one, and in that step the crowd surged. The flower was crushed beneath hundreds of feet before I could reach it. When the child was dragged back, crying, he left only dirt upon the marble. I stood frozen. I wanted to remember his face, but all I recall now is the sound, the fragile crunch of petals turned to dust. That is what it means to be custodies. We are not saviors. We are executioners who never strike. We kill by silence, by inaction, by standing so still that hope itself shatters upon us. The paradox is cruel. To the masses, we are worship made flesh. Our armor gleams so brightly that it blinds. Pilgrims press their foreheads to our greaves, whispering thanks, tears streaking dust across gold. They do not see the truth beneath, that we are no freer than they are. They bow in awe, but we bow in chains. The palace itself enforces this lie. Its gates are higher than mountains, its walls layered with wards and defenses beyond mortal comprehension. But I know, I feel it every day I walk those endless corridors. These walls are not meant only to hold others out. They are meant to hold us in. We are statues that cannot move, swords that cannot stray from their posts. We are the keepers, but we are also the kept. The custodies are said to be the pinnacle of humanity. But what is humanity without choice? What is perfection if it means never being allowed to falter, never being allowed to breathe as men do? I hear the cries of the faithful outside the gates, and I feel the truth sink deeper into my bones. They are not the only prisoners. In the hives below, men labor until their lungs bleed black. In the manufactorums, children are ground into dust to keep machines turning. And here, within the palace, the Emperor's chosen stand eternal, unable to turn, unable to reach, unable to change anything at all. One prison wears rust and chains, the other wears gold. I sometimes imagine the lives of those outside the gates, to taste food cooked by a mother's hands, to feel rain upon skin, unshielded by armor. to speak words that are not rehearsed or weighed for judgment. The masses suffer, yes, but they suffer as men. We endure as monuments polished, lifeless, unmoving. The flower returns to me often in thought, a fragile thing, offered not in defiance, but in hope. It was crushed before I could touch it. Perhaps it was always meant to be. Nothing fragile survives, here not flowers, not men, not even memories. That day, I understood, the Emperor does not need us to protect him from his enemies. His throne will not be toppled by starving children or dying pilgrims, no. The walls of the palace are built for another reason. They are built to keep us here, to keep us staring outward, endlessly, until the last star dies. The palace was not built to keep enemies out, it was built to keep us in. The days are measured not in hours, but in footsteps. 16 hours upon the causeways, unmoving, while the marble beneath my greaves grows warm with the press of my weight. Then the rotation comes. Another brother replaces me. As golden and silent as I withdraw not to rest, for rest is forbidden, but to prepare against to sharpen the edge of a blade that will never dull, to polish armor that has already been polished to blindness. This is life in the custodies, an eternity of repetition, a cycle of silence. The corridors echo with soundless obedience. Servitors shuffle, their limbs clattering with rusted joints, their eyes blank with programming. Palace staff pass in hurried lines, their robes whispering against cold stone. They bow their heads low, never daring to meet my gaze. To look into the eyes of a custodian is to court annihilation. So they glance at the floor, clutch their tablets of parchment, and scurry away like shadows. And I stand. Always I stand. My body is a machine. My training ensures it does not tire, does not hunger, does not slacken, but my mind endures a silence that no machine could bear. Within the confines of my helm, the only sound that belongs to me is my breath, slow, steady, measured. Sometimes, when the corridors fall empty and all other noises vanish, I lean into that sound, the rasp of air drawn through filters, the echo bouncing back into my ears. It is the only proof I have that I am still alive. Without it, I might mistake myself for a statue. I remember once, as a boy though I should not remember, I lay awake, listening to the rhythm of my mother's breath as she slept beside the fire. The sound was fragile, human, mortal. Now, the sound of my own breathing is all that remains of that memory, distorted through the helm, metallic and artificial. It is life, but not life as men know it. There are moments when the silence becomes unbearable, when the rituals of maintenance, the endless standing, the endless watching become hollow echoes of themselves. I clean the spear though no blemish mars it. I reattach clasps though none are broken. I walk the same corridor again and again, and each time I wonder if I am tracing the outline of a cage invisible to all but me. The eternal vigil is more than a duty. It is a burial in gold. At times, faint voices drift through the high arches, the distant sound of pilgrims chanting beyond the gates, carried by the wind, muffled by walls. Their hymns rise and fall like waves breaking upon cliffs. They are desperate voices, cracking with devotion, begging for miracles. Their prayers never reach him. They reach only us, and we do not answer. It is said that we are the Emperor's voice, his hand, his wrath. But I have never spoken a word of comfort. I have only spoken judgment, when judgment was demanded. I have never been permitted to reach through the gate, to touch the hands that claw at the marble. My silence has slain more than my spear ever could. In this silence, I sometimes catch glimpses of the others, my brothers, the 10,000. They are reflections of myself, faces concealed, movements precise, duty absolute. Yet I wonder if they feel what I feel. Do they hear their own breath at night and cling to it as proof they still exist? Or have they let go, allowing silence to consume them whole? I do not ask. We do not speak of such things. It is easier to pretend that the silence does not weigh on us. Easier to let the palace think we are statues carved of golden oath, not flesh and thought. I recall one servant girl, young, her arms burdened with scrolls. She dropped them as she passed me, the parchment scattering like dry leaves across the marble. She froze, trembling, waiting for judgment. I said nothing. I did nothing. She gathered them quickly and fled. Yet I remember her hands shaking, her breath caught in her throat. Not because I threatened her, but because my silence did. That is the weight we carry, the weight of being gods who cannot act as men. Every day is the same walls, the same silence, the same ritual, until the silence itself becomes a living thing, wrapping coils around your mind, whispering doubts you must never voice. And yet, silence does not last forever. There comes a moment when stillness fractures, when routine cracks, when the endless vigil is interrupted by something that does not belong. I felt it once, faint at first, like the tremor of a distant quake, a disturbance, a breach in the monotony. I did not yet know what it was, only that silence is not eternal. And then, one day, the silence was broken. Intrusions are rare within the palace, rarer still that they reach our halls. The walls of Terra are layered with Deftis' armies, banners, tithed men-at-arms, regiments of Skittery, and the living fortress of the Adeptus Arbites. Beyond them, we stand, the 10,000, the Emperor's final word. For a soul to breach so far is unthinkable, and yet, one did. I was stationed upon the eastern causeway when the disturbance echoed through the marble. Not sound, not alarm, something subtler, a tension in the air, a vibration like a string pulled taut. We felt it at once, my brothers and I. We moved as a tide, descending into chambers few mortals ever see. There, between towering statues of forgotten saints, the intruder knelt, chained and broken. He wore rags caked with ash, his flesh scarred by a life spent in the gutters of Terra. Yet he did not tremble. His eyes, sunken though they were, met ours with a steadiness that unsettled me more than any blade. The guards spoke of him as a heretic. He had been captured within the lower sanctums, whispering forbidden things to pilgrims' truths, wrapped in blasphemy. They expected us to silence him swiftly, but I lingered. His voice was cracked, but each word struck like a hammer. "You are not guardians," he said, staring at me through blood and bruises. "You are prisoners. You wear your chains as armor." I should have ignored him. I should have let the execution be swift, unremarkable. But the words clung to me, for in the stillness of his tone, I heard something I had long buried recognition. He smelled of incense and old smoke, like the chapels buried beneath the hives where forgotten faiths still dared to whisper. The scent stirred something in me, a fragment of memory from centuries past, the faint odor of a shrine's braziers, the heat of a flame upon a child's cheek. I should not have remembered, yet I did. The prisoner leaned forward, chains rattling softly. His eyes did not waver. "Do you know how long you have stood here? Do you know how many lives have withered while you polished your gold? You are not men. You are tombs." The chamber was silent. My brothers did not move. None of them would grant his words weight. But within my helm, I felt my breath grow louder, faster. The sound of it filled my skull, drowning the stillness. I wanted to deny him. I wanted to silence him with the certainty that our duty is holy, eternal, unquestionable. But no words came. For in that moment, I feared he was right. The order was given. The prisoner was to die. A custodian does not hesitate in such matters. I stepped forward, spear in hand, the blade gleaming like fire beneath the lumen strips. He did not flinch. He did not pray. He simply looked at me and whispered, "One day, you will remember." I drove the spear through his chest. His blood spread across the marble in a dark halo, steam rising faintly where it touched the cold stone. His body sagged, chains clattering, head bowing forward. His voice fell silent, yet in me the words lived. I ordered the corpse removed. The chains scraped as they dragged him away. The smell of ash lingered long after. My brothers returned to their posts, as if nothing had changed. But everything had. I stood alone in that chamber once they had gone, the blood still wet upon the floor. My reflection shone in it, distorted, fractured, monstrous. The words of the prisoner whispered again in my mind, "You are not guardians. You are prisoners." I tried to shake them away, to bury them beneath ritual and silence, but they remained. It is not the enemies we slay that haunt us most. It is the truths we cannot unhear. His words died with him, but in me, they lived. There are things we are not meant to remember. Names, faces, the taste of food, the warmth of a hand not clad in iron. Our training scours such things away. The psycho-indoctrination, the gene crafting, the endless conditioning. These are meant to strip us down to what is useful and discard what is fragile. The fragile cannot survive in eternity. The fragile cannot stand watch forever. And yet, fragments remain. The prisoner's words had burrowed into me like barbs. They scraped against the walls of silence I had built, tearing at the seams, pulling threads loose. When I returned to my vigil that night, I found my hand drifting toward the secret I had sworn to hide. Beneath the armor, beneath the ceramite plates, and adamantine mesh, my fingers brushed the smallest thing I owned, a scrap of fabric. So delicate, it should have turned to dust long ago. A piece of my mother's shawl. I do not know how I kept it. Perhaps some part of me, even then, rebelled. Perhaps the Emperor's will itself permitted me this sliver of treason. Whatever the reason, it has never left me. I hold it when the silence grows too heavy. I hold it when the weight of gold threatens to bury me alive. The cloth is rough, frayed at the edges, its color long since faded to gray. But when I close my eyes, I remember. The scent of smoke clinging to it, the warmth of wool against cold nights. The rhythm of her breathing as she wrapped it around my shoulders. It is a memory I should not have. A memory that proves I was once a child, once a boy with fears and joys, once something other than this golden husk. I whisper her name sometimes, though I am not certain it is the true one. The years have stretched too long. The syllables blur in my mind like echoes fading in a cavern. But the shape of her voice, the kindness in her tone that remains, and in remembering, I feel the truth. We are not fashioned wholly from golden oath. We are built upon flesh, and flesh remembers. The Emperor demands perfection of us. Perfection of body, of mind, of purpose. We are to be more than men, more than mortal. But what binds me to him is not the gold. It is not the spear. It is not the silence. It is this memory, fragile, forbidden, human. Without it, I would be nothing but a weapon. With it, I am a ghost, carrying the shadow of a boy who should have been erased. I think now of the prisoner's eyes, how he met my gaze without fear. Perhaps he saw this truth within me. Perhaps he recognized that beneath the armor and the oath, there still lived a man who had once known warmth. There is grief in this realization, grief that I can never return to what I was, grief that the shawl will fray further until it vanishes, leaving me with nothing but silence. But there is rebellion in it too. To remember is to resist. To feel is to deny the lie of perfection. The palace would call such thoughts heresy. My brothers would call them weakness. Perhaps they are right. Yet, in the darkness of my chamber, when I hold the cloth against my skin, I know I am more alive than they will ever admit. I am both weapon and ghost, both shield and shadow, both the Emperor's creation and my mother's son. This duality is unbearable, and yet it is the only thing that keeps me whole. I fear one day it will consume me, that memory will grow stronger than duty, that I will falter in my watch, distracted by the warmth of a voice that has been dead for centuries. But I also know this, Without memory, there is no loyalty. Without flesh, there is no devotion. Without the fragile, there is no strength. Perhaps the Emperor understood this. Perhaps that is why he left me this fragment, why he allowed it to endure. Perhaps he knew that golden statues alone cannot hold vigil. Only men can, and for the first time in centuries, I remembered my name. Immortality is not a gift. It is the slowest form of execution. I have stood longer than empires endure. I have watched kingdoms rise, burn, and vanish into ash, while I remained unmoved. Wars beyond counting have thundered across the stars. I have answered some. Others raged too far from Terra for even our reach. Yet always I return here, to the marble causeways, to the walls that choke the sky. Centuries pass, like the tolling of a single bell. What changes for men in a lifetime does not change for me in 100. The faces of pilgrims alter, their tongues shift, their clothes rot into new fashions, but their pleas remain the same. They kneel, they pray, they weep, they die. Only the dust remembers them. My brothers fall too. Custodians do die, though we are made to believe otherwise. I have seen them crushed beneath the claws of demons, cut apart by xenos blades, immolated in fire that could melt. Each time, I felt nothing. No grief, no mourning. We are forbidden such weakness. Their bodies are taken, their names struck from the record, their stations filled by another, and I stand again, as if nothing was lost. But I do remember. I remember their voices in the moments between silence. I remember a laugh quickly stifled, a glance shared in ritual, fragments, ghosts. They accumulate within me like dust in the cracks of armor. The palace may forget them. I cannot. The Emperor's throne devours souls daily. Each sacrifice of psychers feeding its hunger, keeping the Astronomicon alight. I hear their screams sometimes, muffled through the walls, seeping into the stone. It is said their agony is necessary, that their torment sustains mankind. But to me, it feels like another chain binding me to futility. We stand guard over a furnace of bodies, and call it holiness. Perfection erodes. I learned this in the smallest way. Once, after a long campaign in the void, I returned to find a blemish upon my spear's haft, a faint line of rust, no larger than a nail's width. I polished it away, as duty demands, yet I cannot forget it. For rust does not belong to the custodes. Decay should not touch us. But it had. Even gods bleed. Even eternity corrodes. That rust was a whisper of truth. Nothing endures, not even us. Our gold will tarnish. Our marble will crack. The throne itself will fail. And all our vigil will mean nothing. I feel the weight of years pressing harder with every silent hour. The sameness. The silence grows heavier. I polish and polish, but the rust remains in memory, a wound I cannot close. Immortality is a circle without end. Each day repeats, each prayer repeats, each death repeats. We are called eternal, but eternity is nothing but endless repetition. A candle burning so long it becomes indistinguishable from shadow. I once thought that duty gave meaning to the burden. That guarding him, the Emperor, justified the silence. But what meaning remains when he does not stir, when his voice has been absent for 10,000 years? We guard not a man, not even a god. We guard a throne of bone and machinery that consumes life without end. Some nights, I wonder if the Emperor sees us at all, if his eyes, long closed, ever fall upon the 10,000 who bleed and burn and polish and stand for him, or if we are statues to him, as well-forgotten ornaments of a palace too vast to comprehend. I do not know the answer. I fear the answer. I am not eternal. None of us are. We are only endlessly dying. Slowly, silently, without release. Our lives do not end in moments. They end across centuries. Each breath is another step toward a death so stretched, so diluted, it ceases to feel like dying at all. This is the weight of immortality. To live forever is to lose the shape of life itself, and still, I stand. There is no ending to my vigil. There is no release, only the silence of gold, stretching onward, until the last star gutters into black. I know this truth, yet still, I stand. I stand before a throne that consumes the lives of thousands every day. Their screams seep through the stone, muffled but unceasing, a litany of agony that has become the heartbeat of the palace. We call it necessary. We call it holy. But the truth is simpler. Without their sacrifice, the light dies. Without their torment, mankind is blind. And so the screams continue, and I remain their silent witness. I stand, though my brothers fall. Their names are struck from the record, their absence filled without pause. The 10,000 are eternal, we are told, but that eternity is only an illusion. Each death is erased, each life dissolved into silence. I alone remember fragments, half-spoken words, a gesture, the scrape of laughter forbidden in these halls. The palace forgets. I do not. I stand, though memory corrodes me. I should be empty, polished smooth by centuries of obedience. But I am not. The prisoner's eyes still burn in mine. His words gnaw at me like worms in stone. You are not guardians. You are prisoners. I know he was right. Yet still I stand. Why? Because even in futility, duty binds me. Because even in silence, the oath endures. We are the custodians of the Emperor, and though he has not spoken in 10,000 years, though his body is little more than a corpse of bone and wire, still I guard him, not because I believe he will rise, not because I expect his eyes to open, but because I was made to do so. This is not faith. This is survival. I return to my chamber between vigils. It is bare, as it has always been. Stone walls, a bench for armor, a rack for the spear. Nothing more. Nothing that could distract, nothing that could tempt. And yet, hidden beneath that armor lies the only thing that is mine. The scrap of shawl. I hold it now between iron fingers. It is thinner than before, fragile, fraying. The fibers crumble when I brush them, as though time itself conspires to erase the last trace of the boy I once was. I press it to my chest, against the armor, though I can feel nothing. My nerves are dulled, my flesh hardened by centuries, but in my mind, I remember the warmth of the fire, the sound of her voice, the scent of smoke. This is my treachery, my rebellion, my humanity. It is said the Emperor sees all. If he does, then he sees this. He sees my hand clutching forbidden memory. He sees my weakness, and still, he does not strike me down. Perhaps he cannot. Perhaps he does not care. Or perhaps, though I scarcely dare to think it, perhaps he understands. For what is loyalty without memory? What is devotion without humanity? We are not machines. We were made from men, not from stone. And men cannot live on duty alone. I know my brothers would call me corrupted for thinking so. I know they would strip this memory from me if they could, yet I will not yield it. For without it, I am nothing but a hollow shell. Without it, I am dead already. The truth is bitter. The truth is this: survival demands sacrifice. Not sacrifice of blood, not sacrifice of life, but sacrifice of self. To endure, we kill what we are, piece by piece, until only the golden husk remains. That is the price of the Emperor's light. That is the price of eternity. I wonder if mankind understands this. The pilgrims who weep outside the gates, the soldiers who die in his name, the priests who chant his hymns. They think their sacrifice noble, but they do not see what it makes of us. They do not see that we, too, are sacrificed, not upon altars, not upon battlefields, but upon silence. Our souls are the offering. Our humanity is the tithe. Still I stand. Still I guard. Still I kill when commanded. And still I remember. It is not contradiction. It is survival. The shawl crumbles a little more in my hand. One day it will be gone. One day the last thread will turn to dust, and with it the last proof of who I once was. When that day comes, will I remain Arcadian, or will I be only the statue, the husk, the weapon? I do not know. I fear the answer. But tonight, at least, the cloth is still here. Tonight, at least, I am still a man. I look to the throne, and I whisper words that no one will ever hear. Words that are not prayer, not oath, but confession. I will continue. I will endure. I will stand in gold until the end of all things. I will kill, as commanded. I will watch as silence drowns the galaxy. But I will also remember. That is my final rebellion. That is my last vigil. Tell me, would you call this life, or death in golden disguise?